Whew. Okay, now it's time that we can go ahead and have some fun with this one. This is your G Coalition Tactician, brother number 17, ready to blast off with some thoughts. First off, addressing YouTube. I get on my phone, I turn on my phone, and I see the State of the Union address. Immediately first click, not interested. That was yesterday. Today, I see the GOP response to the State of Union address. Again, click not interested. 90% of these politicians, no, 90%, that's being a little more generous. How about 98.5% of these damn politicians are liars? So I don't really care, and I'm not really that interested in what they have to say. They ain't the ones that are going to shape this world for the better if it actually does. So I ain't even talking about these pieces of shit. That's thought number one. Thought number two. Mr. Alibaba, Mr. Sense Time, Mr. McV, Mr. Josai deserves all of the smoke that he is getting from the basketball independent media, from all the black brothers who are talking the truth about the whole situation with him and Kyrie Irving. And the truth involves a lot more than Stephen A's angle. Oh, Kyrie can't be trusted. He's a schmuck. He's a dummy. This is idiotic. No team wants him. Nah, fuck that. No. Okay? You can certainly have an angle for that. But this is not. But the real conversation, the real truth, does not level all the smoke on Kyrie Irving, or even most of the smoke on Kyrie Irving. The real conversation would level the smoke on Joe Tsai, because he made moves that were absolutely idiotic when it comes to actually protecting the Brooklyn Nets as a basketball team. Nah, he made moves that were based on fucking shit that's way deeper than the game. And now his team is going to be torpedoed for life, because Kyrie's gone now. Kevin Durant's going to be gone after the end of the year. And there's not going to be any more ability or any more credibility when it comes to these superstar black athletes coming to the Brooklyn Nets. You ain't going to have the credibility to get anybody of that caliber anymore. It's done. It's done. The Brooklyn Nets are finished at this point as any type of championship contender going forward for at least the next decade. It's done. All right. So them's my two thoughts beyond the wrestling bubble. Now let's go into pro wrestling real quick and get into the topic at hand that I really want to unload on here. And like I said, I'm going to have some fun with this one, because there's major material that a lot of people talking about this whole situation involving the main event of WrestleMania with Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes. And the idea that we want Sami Zayn to get in there. Like, there's a lot of shit. There's a lot of conversation. There's a lot of stuff that the vast majority of the people covering this shit, who are advocating, who are saying that they would like to see somehow Sami get into that main event spot, the vast majority of y'all are completely off base for a number of different reasons when it comes to this whole thing. First things first, do you really think that Sami Zayn being plugged into the main event of WrestleMania this time is actually going to do much good? You think it's actually going to help Sami Zayn, bruh? No, let me freaking put y'all on notice for this whole thing. This whole notion that the IWC is going to commandeer the attention of the WWE Universe, going to commandeer the lion's share of the conversation, to the point where the wrestling fans are going to go to these shows trying to hijack the shit, try to boo Cody Rhodes, turn on Cody Rhodes, and force the issue with Sami Zayn to where WWE has no choice but to plug Sami into the main event of WrestleMania. That whole idea is done and bunk. The crowd did not turn on Cody at the Royal Rumble. The crowd did not turn on Cody on either of the past two Monday Night Raw since the Royal Rumble. Cody, at recent house shows, once he was announced to be coming over there, ended up turning out record gates at house shows that he's been showing up at. And this past promo with Paul Heyman and Cody going down the memory lane with Dusty Rhodes ended up doing so much for the benefit of Cody as a character and his story and his readiness to be in that spot, in that main event against Roman Reigns at WrestleMania, that even the people who are looking at this and saying they want Sami, y'all couldn't help but admire this shit. Y'all couldn't help but admire what happened with Heyman and Cody. And really, it's even deeper than most of the people analyzing this have even managed to figure out. The whole trip down memory lane with Paul Heyman and Dusty, like all the home truths mentioned. Dusty got a spot in ECW. He got some money that he very much needed, and Heyman and ECW gave Dusty kind of a new lease on life in his career. And then Dusty went on. He became the head honcho of the WWE developmental program through Florida Championship Wrestling, through the end of FCW, into the beginning of NXT. He developed and helped develop and cultivate people like Bayley, Kevin Owens, Seth Rollins, and even Roman Reigns. And then you follow up with that little zinger that Heyman threw out there. The one that said that your father told me that you were his favorite son. But he also told me that Roman Reigns was the son that he wishes he had. People understand the zinger in the second comment. The part where Heyman is basically telling Cody that he wishes that you were more like him, that you were more like Roman. Basically trying to paint the idea that Cody was never able to fully satisfy or fully please or make his father proud the way Roman has played out. Like, people understand that zinger, and they see the whole connection of why Cody would run up to Heyman and be like, you just had to make it personal, didn't you? Okay. I'm just trying to go after a wrestling championship, but you just had to make it personal. Everybody just has to make it personal. Okay, fine. You're not going to be the one who pays for it. Your client's going to pay for it with his championship when I take it personally from him at WrestleMania. Yeah. That whole thing with Cody Rhodes demonstrated that he is mentally... First off, he got aggressive. He got in Heyman's face, but he didn't do what Triple H would do. He didn't do what even Rock and Austin would do. He didn't do what John Cena would do. He didn't try to revel. He didn't do what CM Punk would do in this situation. He didn't try to go after Paul Heyman, violently assaulting him and reveling in the idea of punishing this man, of punching the walrus in the face, so to speak. He didn't do that shit. No. He kept his composure. He shook Paul's hand. And he straight up warned him that him trying to make this shit personal is going to backfire on his client. Cody showed readiness in that moment as a character and as a performer for how he actually played that whole thing to perfection, conveying that story to perfection. His character demonstrated readiness, a type of emotional readiness that is just not there in any of the challenges that Roman Reigns has had to face through this whole 2.5 year odyssey of his dominant run as the tribal chief and Universal Heavyweight Champion. Cody is different, not because of a booking decision that was already in the fucking works before he even signed on the dotted line to return to WWE and re-debut it at WrestleMania last year. This was already in the works. Walt Clyde had called it from the beginning. That's not why Cody is the man. That's not why this is Cody's time. This is Cody's time because as a character, he is ready for the moment in a way that none of Roman's previous challengers are. That's what that scene conveyed, and that scene conveyed it perfectly, especially in light of the fact that I'm about to go back to the first part of the little zinger that Heyman tried to throw out there. He said that Dusty told Paul that Cody was his favorite son. For anybody who's heard Cody talk about this, whether it was in AEW, in off-the-cuff shoot interviews, or wherever, you've heard him talk about this. Cody, at that time, because of the difficulties and the falling outs that were there between Dusty and Dustin at that time, over the Goldust gimmick, over the merits to Terry Runnels, over probably some other shit that I don't even remember. There was probably a third thing in there too. But because of those falling outs, Dusty and Dustin were on the outs. Dustin was not invited to Rhodes' family Christmas gatherings and shit like that. So the only chances Cody had to see his big brother were in his performances on TV as a wrestler. That shit was rough. That shit was tough on Cody. So when he and Goldust finally got to link up in WWE and win tag team titles together, it meant something to him. He talked about this before. He talked about this. We know this. So when Heyman is reminding Cody, I should say, that Dusty told him, "You are my favorite son." That Cody is my favorite son. That alone was a zinger right there. Now, if you add that to the Roman is the son I wish I had part, he's basically saying that both Cody and Dustin failed Dusty. That's a double, triple. There's levels to that one diss. There's levels to that one diss that add even more gravitas to Cody's mature response as a character that shows you, look, no, this is different. Cody Rhodes is different. He's that dude who's going to take the championship because he's ready for the moment. That's the story we got, and it was delivered to perfection. And you want to interrupt that? For who? Let's go into for who. Okay, Sami Zayn. We can talk about everything that's gone on with his story. All the stuff, the whole entire saga around him sucking up to the bloodline at first, but eventually like genuinely trying to earn his way with them. Jey Uso not trusting him from the very beginning, but him continuing to try to earn his stripes within the NOI family, the Samoan dynasty, to where they gave him that position. They gave him that trust, and they gave him a chance to prove himself at Survivor Series. And what did he do? Despite Kevin Owens, his best friend, getting into that match and then trying to get into his head, he freaking attacked. He stopped KO from covering Roman and getting the pin, and then he straight up attacked KO and laid him out for Jey Uso to pin him 1, 2, 3. And from that, Jey accepted him, and he became Bloodline Inc. in that moment. But was he going to be fully grafted into the family? Was there going to be a blood covenant oath that was going to bring Sami Zayn in the same way that Jimmy Superfly Snuka's father-in-law through a second wife was brought in? The way that High Chief Peter Maivia was brought in? Was there going to be something like that? Roman intimated that the idea to kind of force Jey to fall in line before Survivor Series, but then Sami started making mistakes. He started saying, well, Kevin, he had a little bit of a Freudian slip about Kevin supposedly being his only friend, even when he was in a rant about how Kevin betrays everybody and he's betrayed him in the past too. He still said he's my only friend. Then he caught himself. Then we had the whole thing where Heyman stands him aside and basically says, hey, Roman's getting kind of bothered with you getting over like this, with the fans constantly cheering you like you're the most popular guy in the bloodline. But then he acts like it was a stalling tactic. Then you got the stuff where Roman slowly starts to kind of abuse and gaslight Sami a little bit. You got the part where Sami goes and tries to call his shot, says that he and Roman are going to beat Kevin Owens and John Cena. But then Sami's the one who freaking eats the pin to make them lose the match. And then Roman just goes off on him, calling his shot and failing like, do you think you're me? I remember all of that. And all of that was great television. But you know what none of that did? None of that established Sami Zayn as the ultimate credible wrestling threat to Roman Reigns and his championship run. None of that did any of that. Going further, Roman starts putting him through the paces through these tests. Heyman does this puts him through this trial on Raw, which had instead of the bloodline acknowledgement ceremony in real life, because several members of the dynasty couldn't make it to the show on the Raw 30th anniversary. But in kayfabe, because Sami's been kind of proven a little bit dodgy lately. So we gotta change course a little bit and really put him through the paces. And what happens? He gets blood. He like Heyman puts this weak ass evidence reel that doesn't even provide half the strongest case you could have provided if you really wanted to say that Sami Zayn is guilty of subverting the bloodline. Heyman's arguments were weak. The evidence he provided was weak. And what does Sami do? He got in his feelings. He got in his feelings. And basically said, really? Like, this is so ridiculous, I don't even have a defense at this point. Roman ready to kick him out until Jey Uso says, you know what, bruh? Last night I went through some evidence of my own. And he actually put out strong cases to show there's times that he's taken bullets for the bloodline, that he's ran interference, that he's done clever things to help distract opponents, to help the bloodline get victories. Key victories, all culminating at that Survivor Series win. And Jey Uso basically does this heartfelt plea about how I hated you, I never trusted you, but you never gave up on me, and you saw all the good in me, and that's what family do. I love you like a brother. And all that shit that he said. And Sami got saved by Jey Uso. But that led to the Royal Rumble. The final test. Are you going to help me solve this KO problem once and for all is what it turned out to be. It had nothing to do with Sami entering the Royal Rumble and securing any type of shit. That was Cody's victory. And WWE, they did the smart thing. They didn't try to pull any craziness with that. They didn't try to pull any massive surprises with that shit. They kept the Royal Rumble simple. Put that match at the beginning. Had Cody win it. He's the number one contender for the world title at WrestleMania. He's the guy who's going to face Roman Reigns. Who's going to beat, in my opinion, Roman Reigns. This has been, like I said, this has been on the table. Very few people caught it. And I'm not one of them who caught it as early as that, but I know one of the people who caught it as early as that. Before he even came in, before he even officially re-debuted, returned to WWE, it was already on the table that this is Cody's moment. But how are we going to get there? Okay. And now we got it. After that warrior performance at Hell in a Cell with his torn pec and then getting sidelined after that, having to recover and bust his ass to recover, he did. He had to get himself cleared a week before the Rumble, before he can get in there. I'm talking about Cody. And he gets in. He does it. He delivers, and then he goes in and wins. Yeah, from the number 30 spot, you can say that was weak booking. But on the other, yeah, you can say that. And you can say that they kind of, that was kind of weak that he won from the number 30 spot. But here's the deal. The number 30 spot, you would think more people would have won from that spot, right? You would think. So you had number 1 versus number 30, and Cody beat Gunther in the end to finally get in the Rumble. And actually, here's the thing about that. That was actually a pretty damn good sequence between just Cody and Gunther by themselves. After Gunther just made it through the entire freaking Rumble match, Gunther, he's another one. Remember how it was immediate, how the moment he was renamed from Walter, everybody declared that Vince McMahon had ruined him forever? Now look where the fuck he's at. Now look where he's at. And no, I don't believe that report I don't believe those reports saying that Vince was was just on the cusp of getting bored with Gunther and getting ready to bury him right before he was forced to step down. I don't believe those reports for 5 seconds, because look at the convenience of those reports of when they came out. They came out at the time that Triple H was under fire for burying Austin Theory for the worst cash in Money in the Bank history. And you know the dirt sheets have always fucking had it in for Vince McMahon. So I guarantee you, these people put that shit out there on purpose with no credible sourcing, no credible backing. These people just put that shit out there, put that on Front Street to cover for Triple H, to deflect for Triple H, and to say, hey, it could have been worse. It could be Vince burying, in these people's minds, Walter. But now Vince is taking over, and he's taken back control of the board, so to speak. So he clearly has, and Triple H has still been talking with him this whole time that he's been supposedly out. So you know that Vince McMahon has influence in Triple H's ear, even though the buck stops creatively with Hunter now. You know Vince still has influence in his ear, and if Vince really wanted to, he could have pushed Hunter to get rid of Gunther or to bump Gunther down the card. If he really wanted to do that. Clearly, that's not what's happening, though. Gunther and Cody had a nice little showdown to make sure that, Cody came in at number 30, but he still earned his spot. And Gunther, in the meantime, as the Intercontinental Champion, looks like a beast. So if you want to talk about just from getting away from the kayfabe, going beyond the kayfabe, just looking like from talent to talent, what Cody Rhodes did for Gunther there is huge. What the entire Royal Rumble did for Gunther was huge. Cody earned his fucking stripes in more ways than one. He deserves this position as the number one contender. So he gets this. So that leads us to, okay, what is Sami Zayn's role? Obviously, it's got something to do with the Roman versus Kevin Owens title match, right? Well, and everybody already knows the story. Everybody already knows the story. I just need to recap it very, very shortly. Roman tries to strong-arm Sami into helping him take out KO. Tries to make him give him the chair. Sami hesitates. Ends up gives him the chair, but because he hesitated, that gave KO an opening. Roman kicked out. Pissed. He was pissed, and eventually it got to a point where he was just ramming Kevin's head into the steps, and Sami's over here begging Kevin Owens to just stay down, bro. Stay down. This ain't good. You're done here. You can't win this. Stay down. After Roman pins him, the bloodline comes in. Jay's ready to crown Sami a new member of the bloodline. But Roman wants to eliminate KO. He gets the shit beat out of him by all 3 Uso brothers, both the actual tag team, the Usos, and their third brother, Solo Sikoa, the enforcer, street champion of the island, who the elders of the Samoan dynasty sent to help Roman. So now you got all 3 Uso brothers beating the absolute dog piss out of Kevin Owens and even tying him up into the ropes so Jimmy and Jay can go for like 16 super kicks in 30 seconds. I know the numbers sound technical, but it felt like a fucking hour to people who were watching that shit live. They did that whole scene perfectly. And then the chair. Roman wants to take out KO, hitting him in the head with a chair. Sami is like, nah, that's enough. Look, he's done. He's beneath you. This is done. This is over. Let it go. Roman's response? Okay, fine, you do it. Sami doesn't actually do it. So Roman gets more and more angry, gets more and more agitated. He tells Sami to do it. Don't be a bitch. Go, do this thing. He starts berating the living shit out of him. Okay, I'm recapping a lot more than I actually meant to, but we all know where this goes. The verbal abuse, Sami can't take it, smacks Roman in the back instead of hitting KO. Roman ends up laying down in the middle rope the same way he did when Seth Rollins did the exact same thing to break up the Shield. Roman is shocked. And then he's pissed. Jay is like, what the hell did you just do? Jimmy and Solo beat the piss out of Sami. Jay can't take it. He walks out on the whole fucking scene. Roman is getting even more pissed. Basically orders Jimmy and Solo to practically kill him. Sami, that is. That lei that they were going to give him, rip that shit up. The honorary U shirt that they had on him, rip that shit up. Solo, we're at war now. We're not taking prisoners anymore. That whole scene. Look, Roman, he was getting cool heel pops during this whole Sami arc. And in those 15 minutes, he turned all that shit around to a mad fuck you Roman chant. Hell, the time that Sami stabbed him in the back with the chair, Sami got the loudest pop I've heard in fucking years. I'm not gonna lie. Sami Zayn is doing terrific. He's doing awesome with the shit that he's got going on in this Bloodline storyline. So I'm not knocking people who feel like maybe they want to see him get rewarded, and they're feeling like the best way to do that is the World Heavyweight title shot. Here's the problem. That's not his place in the story. That's not his place in the story that's being told. And trust me when I tell you, Roman Reigns, Paul Heyman, Triple H, Vince McMahon, they all got a mad story worked out here. We've seen the evidence of it already, so I don't even need to act like I'm theorizing something. We know they got mad storytelling planned for this whole thing. Roman and Heyman brainstorming this shit. Triple H and Vince giving the green lights. The writers helping refine the week-to-week details. We know that this is masterful storytelling that these guys are putting on out here. And that masterful story includes a role for Sami Zayn in what is going to be the weakening of the bloodline. But it also includes Cody being the guy that's going to walk out in the sun and dethrone Roman for the World Heavyweight and Universal titles. And we've seen the evidence that Cody can be worked into this seamlessly because he's a masterful performer his damn self. In fact, he's the guy who brought storytelling to AEW when all the other EVPs were focused on their flips and shit. I don't even want to go more and more into that because I'm not going to make this about these guys. I'm not going to make this about those guys. I don't believe they're good people. I don't believe they're good for the wrestling business, but I'm not going to make it about that. I'm going to keep it to Cody and keep it to Roman and keep it to Sami Zayn and keep it to these arguments involving with the IWC and what is going on and people saying that Sami should be in this title match. Here's the problem. He shouldn't be in this title match because his place is not to be in this title match. All the development that came from Sami Zayn made him more of a pure babyface, showed more and more of his true heart as a character. First, his loyalty to the bloodline, his trying to earn his stripes within the bloodline because he is who he is deep down. His ulterior motives, he had ulterior motives in the beginning of that story. In the beginning of that story, he had ulterior motives. Last year's WrestleMania, Sami Zayn got humiliated by Johnny Knoxville and the Jackass crew. He needed to get some respect back as the locker room leader. And he figured the best way he could do that was by osmosis. By getting in bed, in liaison, with the bloodline and Roman Reigns. So the whole beginning of Sami's storyline with Roman and the Usos was through these ulterior motives. But as time went on and as he felt more and more of the pressure to earn his way in, and he became more dedicated to that mission, earning his stripes with the bloodline became a goal in and of itself to where he forgot the whole motive in the first place. He forgot his ulterior motive behind it in the first place. And so people saw more and more of that genuine heart that involved Sami. But then the more he got in, the more and more it looked like now we know he's in, but the more and more shit got dangerous. The more and more he saw the issues that these people had. The more and more he saw the dangerous thug life tactics that these dudes were willing to engage in. And the more and more it's more and more he was asked to destroy his best friend for the sake of this shit, or to watch them destroy his best friend in front of him, the more and more it sank in. Maybe this ain't it. Maybe this ain't what I want. And then, and the Roman and Heyman and the gaslighting, that became the final straw. Yeah. What is that? You developed his heart as a babyface character. You developed the reawakening of the heart of Sami Zayn as a babyface that ended up leaving through the last time he saved Kevin Owens, when he saved him from Shane McMahon. Okay, you're saving the dude who was your best friend, who for the longest time you considered your best friend, kind of off and off, best friend, worst enemy, whatever you want to call it. He could see whatever, through better or worse, he considered Kevin Owens his brother, and he saw Shane McMahon basically about to kill him, so he saved him, and that was a heel turn from a technical standpoint because Kevin Owens was not a good guy. But Sammy ended up losing himself more and more and more into those nasty tactics, to the point where he even freaking stabbed Kevin in the back to win a match. And then after that, it eventually got to the point where he wasn't even wrestling no more. He was hiding behind Shinsuke. He was hiding behind Cesaro. He was riding those boys on the way to getting an Intercontinental title. And then he became the conspiracy theorist when he lost the Intercontinental title. And then the Jackass thing happened, and that was what led to the whole Bloodline thing. The whole heart of him as a quintessential babyface that had gotten over through NXT, through his time in the Black and Gold NXT, when it actually did develop characters and tell stories. The whole run with Pac Neville, where Pac was the NXT champion, and he was constantly screwing Sammy over, saying you're not pragmatic enough, you don't know how to do what it takes to win the big one. But he showed he didn't have to do that in order to win. And ultimately Neville came to respect him and gave him that hug. And then KO came in and betrayed him and took the title from him, and all of that. That whole story, that version of Sami Zayn is basically what they're bringing back, but in a more matured and more developed fashion. That heart of Sami Zayn as a babyface, that's what just came back. Okay, great. But what about his credibility in the ring? I'm not talking about his talent. We know how good he is talent-wise, in-ring, work-wise. That's not what I mean. I mean, how strong is his character in terms of credibility and winning and championships and all of that in the ring? What kind of strong position does he have as a character to be believable winning a high-stakes main event? I'll tell you, last summer when he became the number one contender for the Universal Championship, Brock Lesnar goaded him into going for that match before he wanted to. He got his ass, then Brock kicked his ass, and then Roman pinned him in 8 seconds. That's how much credibility he had as a world title contender. That's not what was developed and grown through this character, through this whole storyline. His credibility as a world title challenger is not what was developed and grown through this whole thing. His heart as a babyface is what was regrown through this whole thing. His credibility as a world title contender? Nah, that ain't even it. That ain't his spot. That's not his spot in the story, and that's not what got him over in the first place. So thinking that the payoff needs to be him stepping in and beating Roman Reigns for the Universal Championship, that's a mistake in and of itself. Cody Rhodes' payoff, his whole quest, that he told us all about the moment he came in. Hell, he's mentioned in AEW that was his mission, that was the thing he always wanted to do, to bring the world title home to his father. And even though he can't technically do it because his father's dead, he can at least be the guy who carries that title for the Rhodes family into the Rhodes house. He's acknowledged it in AEW that was a thing that he wanted to do. He came to WWE and he made that his mission statement. That was always the plan, that was always the goal, and we know it. And yes, he was going to have a setback before he did this, before he actually got to this point at WrestleMania. But originally the plan was that he was going to get another shot at Roman earlier. and he was going to lose to Roman at SummerSlam. That was supposed to be the setback on his path. But instead, because of his real life injury, he got something completely different that ended up giving him a scar of a warrior that ended up winning over the heart of the WWE Universe, and he didn't even have to touch Roman until now. God stepped in and gave Cody something bigger than what WWE had planned as far as the thing that was going to get him over. And yeah, it fucking hurt. Yeah, he had to go through surgery. Yeah, he had to sit out and then work his way back and hustle his way back. But as Cody acknowledged, even that shit was worth it. Everything that man had been through was worth it. Through his first WWE run. From being slapped around by Randy Orton all the way to Stardust. His whole journey through the independent circuit, meeting the Elite and Bullet Club, starting AEW, going through that company, being that firebrand, and then over time being relegated to this notion of this isolated Codyverse, and having people mock him, and having the fans betray him, and him never giving in or turning heel for them, until eventually shit got to where he knew that company was not going to be his sustainable path going forward. Not only because of the shit going on backstage, but because he himself felt like he should have never made himself an executive and should have never locked himself out of the AEW championship. All of that, all the whole journey involving Cody Rhodes brought him to that point where he was supposed to be the guy to face off for the world, to face off for the world title here. Brought him to this situation, brought him to where he is right now. He has a journey that's got to be completed his damn self. And that journey involves him getting in this bloodline gig, getting in this story, being the guy that's going to come in and face this indomitable final boss of WWE and finally bring him down. But what's Sami Zayn's role in all this? If Sami's not the guy who's supposed to beat Cody for the title, then what is he supposed to do? Oh, okay. Let me make this easy for you guys. Let me make this easy for y'all. Okay. All right, I'm getting the text from... I'll be right back. Sorry, had to take care of some quick business. I'm back at it now. But that whole... Where was I? I kind of forgot my train of thought already. But... Let me see if I can pick it up. So I was talking about the whole, okay, see where Cody Rhodes is going, see how his journey, how it led him to where he's got to be that guy. Okay, now what about Sami Zayn? What about Sami Zayn? The bloodline just betrayed him. And Kevin Owens has been there this whole time telling him, look, they're not your blood. They're eventually going to do this to you. And he was right. And Sami actually, he rebelled against the abuse of Roman Reigns to save Kevin from getting his head caved in. What do you think that leads to? We're going to that spot where it's going to be Sami and Kevin, right? It's going to be, obviously, it's going to be the thing where Kevin's going to come back to save Sami from getting his head caved in, and they're going to officially reunite at the Elimination Chamber, and then it's going to be them two as a unit, right? That's where this is going. That's where this is going. Okay, there's a clear direction here. There's a clear direction. Sami Zayn is going to be the guy, along with Kevin Owens, who finally toppled the Usos and bring them down. And that's going to weaken their ability to help Roman. They have a job in this story too. This is not just about Roman Reigns losing the Universal. There's a whole intricate storyline here. We still got to wait for the part where Jey Uso makes his decision to side with his family and help them destroy Sami until Kevin Owens has to make the save. We're still waiting for that to happen. I don't know if it's going to be happening this week on SmackDown, or I don't know if they're going to wait till the Elimination Chamber to actually do it. But that's what we're waiting on. That still has to happen here. Jey Uso, you heard the crowd chanting, "We want Jey." They were begging Jey to come out and save Sami when Roman was beating the piss out of him on SmackDown. He's a character that's grown through this whole entire Bloodline saga too, including the 9 months of dealing with Sami Zayn. Where's his spot in this? Where's the consideration for how Jimmy plays into this? Being the cool-headed brother. Being the cool-headed, easygoing brother who at first was like, nah, fuck this whole thing. I'm nobody's bitch. Why you coming around? I saw you abusing my brother. But then Roman gaslit him into going along. And he's obviously been kind of taking things easier than Jey for this whole freaking angle ever since then. I think he's mainly still involved with Roman mostly to look out for Jey. But from an overall standpoint, where's the story? Where's the respect for their role in the story? Everybody who's walking around talking about how Sami Zayn has to be the one to beat Roman Reigns at WrestleMania, you're not respecting the fact that the Usos factor into this. And speaking of how the Usos factor into this, let me freaking attack something else with this. What happened? Okay, Sami Zayn gets thrown into the main event. There's people who want to turn this into a triple threat match, who want Sami Zayn to somehow get thrown into this match against Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns to make it a triple threat match at WrestleMania. What happens when the match becomes a triple threat match? It's no longer singles rules where disqualifications apply. What does that mean? That means the bloodline can all interfere. Legally, all three Uso brothers could jump into the ring, beat up Sami and Cody if they wanted to, and the referee can't do a goddamn thing about it. It's a 4-on-2 handicap match. It's not an actual triple threat. You gotta factor in the fact that the bloodline is involved here. And if Sami is thrown into the main event, that undercuts his reunion with Kevin Owens because that's no longer the focal point of what he's doing. So it no longer means as much that he reunites with Kevin. And it no longer plays into as much of a factor in the story. And if you look back at what happened 2 years ago, when the IWC was able to force that exact same scenario with Daniel Bryan special pleading and charity casing his way into the main event triple threat to completely upend the story of Roman and Edge. More on that later. The two baby faces weren't getting along because of that shit. They were at each other's throats. So basically, now you've enabled the bloodline to turn it into a 4-on-2 assault against two guys who aren't going to be getting along because one guy selfishly charity cased his way into the other guy's rightful title shot. There's no logical outcome other than Roman Reigns stack pinning Sami and Cody the same way he did Daniel Bryan and Edge. There's no logical outcome other than that. Not to mention, especially when you factor in the fact that if Sami were to do something like that, that would prove Roman's claims that he saw greed in Sami's eyes, that all Sami wanted to do was use his family for his own gain. That would prove Roman Reigns' claims as a character absolutely correct. And because these guys believe in character consistency, Roman would jump on that claim. Hell, Jey Uso would jump on that claim and say that, yeah, he should have kept his gut instinct and never trusted Sami from the start. You would have these guys saying, we knew you were a snake. And they would be right. And that would affect the fan reaction that Sami Zayn would get. He wouldn't be as over because he wouldn't be the heartfelt babyface character that everybody was cheering for anymore. He would be a guy who manipulated and used their family, baited them into turning on him, and then charity cased his way into the main event of WrestleMania without ever earning it. That's what Sami Zayn as a character would be at that point. The television audience would see that shit. And let me tell you something. You think it's the IWC of old that's going to these WWE shows? No. It's not the IWC smart heavy fan base that's going to these shows anymore. It's not these people that are going to hijack the shows. The combination of the fact that AEW exists for these people now, number one, and number two, COVID-19 pandemic caused the real fans to really miss the actual atmosphere of the WWE to where they want to enjoy the show more. you now have a situation where a lot more of the fans, maybe not fully casual fans, a lot more of the fans going to the arenas are not necessarily so much casual fans as much as they are television audience WWE fans. There's a lot more of that and a lot less of IWC smarks attending these WWE shows than there were before in 2014. You underestimate that factor. These fans are not turning on Cody Rhodes. And the evidence is right there. They're not turning on Cody Rhodes. They're eating out the palm of his hands in the shit that he's doing. They love both Cody and Sami. They want this story to play out in the way that both Cody and Sami can get over on the bloodline. Putting them against each other in this world title match is counterproductive at best. You don't do that shit if you're a proper booker who sees these patterns and sees this common sense. You want me to prove it? Let's go back to Daniel Bryan. Let's go back to 2021. Let's go back to the first live gate since the COVID lockdowns. WrestleMania, 2021, 37. Let's go back to WrestleMania 37. Edge came back a year ago in an absolute miracle scene. Nobody saw it coming. That he was actually going to be competing in the Royal Rumble match. That he was actually going to be back in the ring for the first time since he was forced to retire. When You Think You Know Me was heard at that arena, everybody fucking exploded. Oh my fucking God, Edge is back. And then the Randy Orton RKO happened the very next night. And the crowd froze, thinking that, oh my God, he's already been destroyed. And then he came back. But unfortunately, what happened to that was you couldn't get the payoff for that in an actual arena because the fucking lockdown forced WrestleMania 36 to be turned into Performance Center Mania. What happened with that? Edge and Orton, they put on a storytelling old school clinic of a street fight that lasted for like 37 minutes. And then the internet did what the internet does. Instead of being grateful that Adam Copeland can actually fucking wrestle a 30-minute match again, they proceeded to turn on him, to set the stage for the betrayal of Edge, to whine that he was taking too long, that the match was too plodding and slow and boring and this, that, and the third. I'm like, I'm sorry. Did I miss something here? Did I miss something here? Don't we want Edge back? Aren't we happy that he's back? Aren't we happy that he can wrestle for 30 minutes? I mean, that's what I thought, but apparently I was wrong because I see JD from New York fucking blasting Edge for taking too long in this match. Then we go into this shit. The further and further this feud goes, Orton ends up beating Edge, and then Edge ends up going out for another injury, to where it's going to take him till next year to come back, and he comes back at the next year's Royal Rumble. He wins, and it's like, okay, we have the story of Edge coming back to reclaim what he never lost. The top spot in the industry as the leading world champion in WWE. Who's he go after? He goes after Roman Reigns, the tribal chief, the head of the table. And immediately, you have the JDs and you have half the IWC again blasting Edge, turning on Edge, claiming that he is selfish, calling him out for the fact that he's an old retired guy, that he's a part-timer, that he has creative stroke in the back, that he has influence on creative for SmackDown. So what? And they're all saying that this is some selfish bullshit that he's doing, that he's going into business for himself, that he doesn't care about the talent. And what happens from that? What happens from that? All of a sudden they start campaigning and saying that Daniel Bryan should be the one in that spot. And I'm looking at it like, whoa, how much, what sense does that even make? Daniel Bryan is also an old guy who was forced to retire and fought and clawed his way to come back to wrestling in WWE again. He's also a guy who has creative influence on SmackDown as a product. So you're over here slamming Edge, declaring him to be a selfish prick, and then you're asking Daniel Bryan to do the exact same thing you're slamming Edge for. It made absolutely no sense to me. It made zero sense to me. Oh, but what was the excuse? Edge should have gone after Drew McIntyre. Because that's a world champion that he can beat and not harm his status. And Daniel Bryan can be an easy win for Roman Reigns. Because Roman is just coming into his own as the tribal chief and we don't really want him to take an L, right? That was the logic presented. What happens? What do we see as a result of this relentless campaign? WWE doesn't have a live audience to feed off of to be able to say that these people are wrong. So they obviously believe that what these people are saying is reflective of the actual audience of the show. So buying into these people's word, Vince McMahon once again caves to what he thinks the fans want. And instead of telling the story that was right there for Roman Reigns and Edge, Roman's rise as the tribal chief versus Edge's comeback hero story, who's going to take the fall? This is the highest stakes possible match for WrestleMania at that time. Instead of playing that story out naturally and letting it lead to a very important fact that Edge ends up alluding to towards the end of what actually happens. And when I bring this fact up, it's going to really crystallize how stupid and assholic and selfish the IWC was and WWE caving to them was in upending this story. So instead of doing the right thing, what happens? Daniel Bryan gets thrown in. Daniel Bryan ends up getting a match against Roman Reigns, getting kind of screwed over because of Heyman and Reigns' politicking. Then he special pleads and charity cases his way into the world title match at WrestleMania, forcing it to be a triple threat match. Edge, as a character, rightfully, furiously snaps and treats Bryan as an enemy just as much as Reigns. WWE tries to present it as a heel turn because they think we want Bryan more than Edge. But 95% of the actual watching audience was like, I'm with Edge. Fuck Daniel Bryan. What the fuck is this charity case doing in this match? He doesn't belong here. And and this is the funny part I'm about to mention. So many of the black free-thinking YouTube wrestling channel guys started calling this bullshit out. Millennial Smart, he called this shit out. Mongo Slade, he called this shit out. Walt Clyde, he called this shit out. And yeah, okay, Walt Clyde, now I'm kind of not as in with Walt Clyde because he kind of shadow banned me over some disagreement that I don't even fully remember because it was that insignificant to me, but apparently for him, it was enough to shadow ban me over. Not a fan of that. Not fully on his team because of that, but I'm still going to give him his props. He called that shit out and he caught my attention. Jay Rance, back when he was talking wrestling, I don't know if he still is, I don't think he still is, but he caught my attention when he called that bullshit out. All the freaking free-thinking black YouTubers called that shit out, whereas 85% of the freaking white knight soy cucks in the IWC who just regurgitate everything a dirt sheet Dave Meltzer says, slurp the dick of Kenny Omega and the Elite, and hate Vince McMahon more than they love life itself. They all were on this train of fuck Edge. Edge is selfish. Daniel Bryan has to be in this match. And because the WWE caved to them, it ruined the story. It ruined everything. It ruined the build to the main event of WrestleMania. And when Edge fucking had that sit-down promo where he pointed out that WrestleMania was literally 10 years to the day. April 11th, 2011, April 11th, 2021. Literally 10 years to the day that he was forced to retire and surrender the World Heavyweight Championship for what he thought would be the last time ever. He had a chance to get it back. And instead of it being about that, it's about Daniel Bryan crying his way into a title match he didn't deserve. The moment Edge pointed that out, I was already against this whole Daniel Bryan insertion, but the moment he pointed that shit out, I'm saying fuck Daniel Bryan. I fucking despised Daniel Bryan as a character because of that bullshit. And I'm not the only one. You think I'm the only one? You think my brothers were the only ones? Nah. Go to WrestleMania. Listen to the entrances. Daniel Bryan was actually getting booed at the beginning of his entrance before he unleashed the yes chants. Edge got the loudest pop of the match like he was the fucking megastar who everybody wanted to see. The real fans who attended the first live gate in over a year, the first live gate since the lockdowns, they made their voices clear. We want Edge. Fuck Daniel Bryan. And here's more. It's not just the fans that fucking hated that decision. Bryan Danielson himself fucking hated this. You want to know how bad he hated it? It didn't even take him a month after that match before he got on an interview and he openly said that he felt like he didn't belong in that match. That being in that match gave him an out-of-body experience. And because of that experience, he felt like he didn't really want to do this shit full-time anymore when it comes to being in the wrestling. Like, he didn't want to do wrestling on a full-time schedule anymore. It ain't hard to freaking connect the dots. The dude's in AEW now. It ain't hard to connect the dots. Being forced to insert himself in a situation he knew he didn't belong in was the final straw that caused him to leave WWE. And y'all people made that happen by thinking you were doing him a favor. So now let's go fast forward to 2 years later. Cody Rhodes and his comeback journey. His dream moment. His day of destiny to face Roman Reigns for the Universal and WWE titles. And now you want to throw Sami Zayn in there and force him to force himself to get into that match. The moment he does exactly what Daniel Bryan did 2 years ago, that's the end of Sami Zayn being this lovable full heart babyface. That's the end of it. That's the end of that. He becomes a selfish manipulator that they accuse him of being in the very beginning of this story. Sami Zayn's character is undermined if he does what Daniel Bryan did to force himself into the main event of WrestleMania. But that's what y'all seem to want to see happen. Y'all ain't learned your fucking lesson. This ain't 2014 with the Yes Movement, where that moment, that was Daniel Bryan's story, but Batista was thrown in randomly because Vince McMahon didn't believe in him. It's not like it was 2019, where Kofi Kingston caught fire at a time when there was nobody that was really going to be a challenger for the WWE title. It's not like that. This is like 2021, where someone's story is right there, but y'all want this Ring of Honor nerd to take over the story and to take over the seat, when that's not his place. And even Sami Zayn, no. Let me go into real life. Even Rami Sebe knows that is not his place. The dude literally did an interview with Ariel Helwani. He literally just did an interview with Ariel Helwani where he openly acknowledged, okay, yeah, sure, I could be the WWE champion for a few months. I could probably do the appearances here and there, but I don't really see myself as like the face of the company, that type of guy that they're really looking for to put on the billboards to project that image of strength that is the champion, that is the top guy. He openly acknowledges he's not that fucking guy. There's no problem with that. Not only is there no problem with that, but it's actually admirable that the dude went out of his way knowing that there was this fan outcry, this honestly inorganic fan outcry, to plug him into that position, but he knows he doesn't belong in it. He knows that Roman and Paul have better plans than to just throw him in there, throw him into that main event. He knows that they have better plans than that. And he knows what happened to Daniel Bryan a couple years ago, and he doesn't want any part of it. But he's not gonna turn on his fans either. So yeah, he acknowledges the fact that the fan outcry is there, and he doesn't completely shit on any chance he could ever have of being a world champion, but he acknowledges that in this situation, he ain't that guy. He ain't that guy. He basically told y'all right there, I love you, thank you, but don't do this to me. Please, don't do this to me. Don't throw me in this position to where I have to force myself into a match that's not the place in this story that I belong in. Don't do this to me the way y'all did it to Daniel Bryan. Because it didn't help him. It didn't help. What has Daniel Bryan done since then? He had 2 more title shots. After that, lost both of them, got basically beaten out of WWE. Then he goes to AEW and has a very mid career. And don't say, oh no, he's not mid, he's putting on banger matches. Bryan Danielson can put on banger matches in a fucking broom closet with a broom. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the character. I'm talking about the momentum. I'm talking about the investment that people watching his fucking product have in him. That's gone. That is gone. He has never been the same since he was forced into that title match that he knew he did not belong in. He's never been the same. That shit destroyed the yes movement Daniel Bryan that y'all thought y'all were putting back up at the top. And now look what's going on with Sami Zayn. It's real simple. This isn't his place in the story. Selfishly inserting himself into the main event, putting a situation together to where him and Cody Rhodes as characters would have to be at each other's throats, and the bloodline would be free to fucking pick at their bones. That's not his place in this story. Not only is that not his place in this story, it makes absolutely no damn sense because, like I just said, how does Roman lose the championship in that situation? How? It's not just a triple threat. It's a 4-on-2 with the bloodline versus 2 guys who can't stand each other. That's what that situation is. You make this shit a triple threat match, Roman Reigns is holding that world title for another 2 years. Because there's nothing else that makes any damn sense. No. Let Sami have his reunion with Kevin. I guarantee you, if these people play their cards right, Jey Uso's getting nuclear heat. And Sami and Kevin reuniting to take down the Usos is going to be just as rich. If that is what happens, it's going to be just as rich as Cody finally dethroning Roman Reigns. They can all have their moment in the sun. They can all have their time in the sun and do what needs to be done. Let this story happen the way it's meant to. Let WWE cook on this one, bruh. This ain't like the time when they missed out on Bullet Club versus The Shield. This is not that. They're firing on all cylinders. They're doing everything they need to do. Let them cook. Don't force the WWE to do something that is completely outside the lines of the story that they're telling. Let Roman cook. Let this thing happen. Let this thing play out the way it's supposed to, my niggas. Yeah, the brother just came out of me with that one right there. But yeah, let it happen right. Let it go right, man. Don't try to ruin this. Don't try to ruin this by plugging this idea that Sami Zayn needs to be hoisting the title up. Don't y'all know this story has way more layers than just who takes down Roman for the title? Stop this shit, y'all. Stop this shit. Stop it now. Please. First off, it's not going to work because y'all are not the ones in the crowds anymore. Second, even if it did work, it would do a lot more harm than good. as Daniel Bryan and Edge are proof of in this very story. As a matter of fact, let me give you a little bit of shit when it comes to the whole ripple effect of this of what happened in 2021 and how that plays into current storylines to this day. Last year, when Edge made his challenge for WrestleMania, AJ Styles answered the challenge, and he betrayed. Why am I saying betrayed? He blindside assaulted AJ with a low blow. He turned heel. And then he came out with the dark lighting and the other side entrance theme and basically said that he's the benchmark. He's the one who's going to judge everybody. Yeah, Judgment Day. Do y'all remember one of these promos that him and Damian Priest did with Edge on his throne? There was a promo they did where Edge basically pointed out that the way that the WWE Universe turned on him is what created the bitterness inside of him that led to the creation of the Judgment Day. And what has the Judgment Day gone on to do since then? Damian Priest and Rhea Ripley got talked into betraying him. Yeah, first off, let me backtrack a little bit. He brings in Damian Priest as his apprentice. Damian Priest, him and Edge have had this relationship, this mentor-protege relationship, been bubbling behind the scenes for the longest time. It finally plays out to where they're working together as the start of this Judgment Day. Rhea Ripley betrays her tag team partner / homegirl / fellow goth homegirl / pseudo girlfriend, Liv Morgan, to join up with Edge in the Judgment Day. Liv Morgan links up with Finn Balor and AJ Styles, who are linking up Bullet Club allies for the first time. Liv ends up joining them because Edge and Priest are targeting both of them, and so naturally they all band together. Edge is able to use Judgment Day to skate away from AJ's vengeance, and then Finn is convinced to turn against his Bullet Club brother AJ Styles. And in turn, he convinces Rhea and Damian to turn against Edge. And then they end up, during the feud, and they end up picking a fight with Rey and Dominic Mysterio, as well as Edge when he comes back after them for revenge. And it ends up being a thing where Dominic gets corrupted by Rhea and turned against his father. So this evil, dark faction, let me paint this picture. The bitterness that was created in the character of Edge by the betrayal of the fans and the forced insert of Daniel Bryan ruining his 10 years to the day journey to reclaim the gold that he never should have lost. That bitterness that was created in Edge's character led to the creation of the Judgment Day, which has been a thorn in his side, which has been a thorn in Rey Mysterio's side, his close friend, which has been a thorn in the side of AJ Styles, a man he has respected. It's been a thorn in the side of all of Monday Night Raw. This evil force, when it comes to the kayfabe, in terms of storyline, this evil force called the Judgment Day was created by the IWC's betrayal and Daniel Bryan's usurping of Edge's dream. That's what that did. So in context, Daniel Bryan forcing his way into that match did a lot more damage, and especially since you can argue that if Daniel Bryan had accepted the fact that he got screwed and been like, okay, you know what, he got screwed out of fighting Roman, and instead of trying to reinsert himself into the title picture and invading Edge's WrestleMania match, he resolved to instead back up Edge. Talking from a pure kayfabe logic standpoint, if Daniel Bryan had been unselfish enough to be like, hey, Edge, I got screwed by these guys. These guys are going to make sure that the title picture always stays fixed in their favor. I got to have your back against these guys to keep Jey Uso and Paul Heyman from butting in this. You go ahead and do this thing. And what if Edge and Bryan could come to this agreement and Edge is like, you know what? Thank you. And if this goes down, I promise you, as soon as I become champion, you're getting a fair shot at this belt. You know what stories could have been told with that? You know what could have, from a logical babyface standpoint, the logical babyface thing to do for Daniel Bryan would have been to create that alliance with Edge, to where he's going to make sure that Jey Uso and Paul Heyman can't interfere, and that shit would have been the catalyst. It could have been the thing that would have allowed Edge to get that special comeback victory, to get that special time in the sun, that moment at the top. And what would that have done? Would that have derailed Roman Reigns as a tribal chief? If you believe in this guy as an actor, let me tell you something. Jay White was able to take, going to New Japan Pro Wrestling, aka now AEW Japan. Or should I say, let me backtrack. Going back to New Japan Pro Wrestling before it was AEW Japan. Jay White got plugged into a position where he was going to be, where Wrestle Kingdom had 2 nights, right? He was plugged into a position where he beat Kota Ibushi for the Wrestle Kingdom briefcase, despite he's the first guy who ever took the number 1 contender spot for Wrestle Kingdom in the IWGP Heavyweight title. He's the first guy who ever took that spot away from the G1 winner ever since Okada established that briefcase and the right to defend it. Ever since that was established, nobody ever took it from the winner until Jay did it. So he had the advantage position, right? And Kota Ibushi was out. Until Naito decided, you know what? He won the G1. He still deserves a title shot. So he gave his title shot to Ibushi on night 1. And Naito and Ibushi damn near killed each other. And Ibushi beat Naito for that match. So Ibushi, just a night ago, pretty much went through hell. Meanwhile, Jay White is fresh as a fucking daisy. Jay White was already beaten Ibushi to even be in that position. He's fresh as a daisy. Ibushi just fucking damn near killed himself to win the world title in the first place. There's no business for Jay White not winning that match. Ibushi wins that match. Beats Jay White. In one of the most head-scratching moments of all fucking time. This made him look weak as fuck. And if any lesser performer than a guy like that would have been completely destroyed as a world title contender. But instead, he fucking has a meltdown for the ages. And now people are wondering, is he going to is he going to go to AEW? Is he going to go to WWE? Is he a free agent? Is that in the third? He took something that should have been the end of him as a top guy and turned it into and within 10 minutes, turned it into him being the most compelling guy in New Japan. Jay White. This guy did that, okay? If he can do that, then Edge and Roman Reigns can go through a fight with each other where one of them loses and recount from that. Roman Reigns could have, at that early going of his title run, he could have afforded to lose it and then come back more diabolical than ever in order to do whatever the fuck he had to do in order to get it back. And yeah, you could have had the Edge versus Daniel Bryan match, and then Roman could have fucking done his damage. And then you could have done a situation where, depending on whether Bryan still wanted to leave WWE or not, you could have either done a thing that would have sent Bryan off with a violent beating, or you could have gave him a violent beating that would have motivated him to come back. And maybe next year, aka last year, he would have been one of the challengers available to face Roman for the Universal title after he got it back from Edge at or before SummerSlam 2021. He would have destroyed. You could have had Roman come back. You could have had him with Jimmy Uso coming back to and being brought back into the ways of the bloodline. Roman could have destroyed Edge to get that title back. Destroyed Edge again in a rubber match. Destroyed John Cena. Destroyed Drew McIntyre. You could have had Roman go on a tear of a lifetime to reassert his dominance in that fucking position. And it would have been, I honestly believe, we would have gotten to the exact same place that we are in right now, but it would have been done through a much better path with much more good faith involved. And you wouldn't have had that black stain of there's a WrestleMania main event where somebody didn't belong in it, involved in Roman Reigns' title run. And sure, yeah, okay, you wouldn't have had 900 days. You wouldn't have had 1,000 days, right on the cusp of 1,000 days. That wouldn't have been part of the story. But I guarantee you the diabolical shit that he would have done to get that title back would have made up for it. And made it even better. That's where we would have gotten to. And then you would still have this point. And as a matter of fact, last year would have been even better. Wasn't it supposed to be a thing where, like, when Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns fought at WrestleMania to unify the WWE and Universal titles, wasn't that supposed to be their last match ever? Yeah, that was, right? Roman beats Brock Lesnar. That's the last time they're ever going to fucking fight each other for a championship. Ever again. Oh, but then you had the SummerSlam plan was for Matt Riddle and Randy Orton to fucking get involved and fight Roman. And Orton was supposed to end up becoming the number one contender. But because Orton got injured, all of a sudden you had nobody because you wanted to save Drew McIntyre for Clash of the Castle. So what did you end up doing? You went back to Brock Lesnar. Now, granted, that match was still epic in and of itself because they freaking broke out all the bells and whistles. They even had they had Austin Theory's failed cash in. They had Brock freaking drive a tractor to fucking lift up the ring. They did all sorts of fucking insane shit. But people were fucking groaning and complaining at the fact that Brock was even back involved in another fight with Roman again. Guess what happened? If the situation with Daniel Bryan had gone much better and he hadn't been put in that out-of-body experience that ultimately convinced him to leave WWE, guess what you could have fucking done? You could have had Daniel Bryan versus Roman Reigns one-on-one in that time, at that moment at SummerSlam. And imagine how much of a bigger stage that would have been. In front of fans, one-on-one. Bryan's story. Imagine that. That's what you could have got. So from both a storyline and real life standpoint, Bryan being forced into the main event of WrestleMania 2 years ago did a lot more harm than good. So with that in mind, Sami Zayn forcing his way into that match, into Cody's match this year, we already know that will do a lot more harm than good. We already know from multiple different angles that I have covered in this close to an hour and a half of fucking ranting my ass off. We already know this is going to do more harm than good if you actually go through with it in that fashion. Plug Sami Zayn into this shit when it ain't even his spot. He has a spot in this story, but this ain't it. But you want to plug him into it because most of y'all, speaking mainly to like all the main like the What Cultures and the New Yorkers and all the people in the IWC that want to see Sami Zayn in this story so bad that they're not even freaking thinking straight. He's in the story. He has a spot, but this ain't it. You want to fucking plug him into this main event because you don't see what the right thing to do is here. There is a place in this story. Do the right thing. WWE has already fucking got it planned. This is not one of those situations where they're completely fumbling left and right and you need to fucking fantasy milk your way into a rescue. This is a situation where they are firing on all cylinders. They have a position for Sami Zayn. They have the right thing for him to do already in place. Let them do it. Let them do it. Don't get so caught up in your fantasy where you have to have some ex-Ring of Honor schmuck, some fucking white liberal who wrestled in Ring of Honor for 15 years, hoist up the WWE title at WrestleMania. Get that fantasy out your dome piece for once and let the right thing happen here. That's basically where I'm at here. That's it. That's the whole point. Every single example that I just threw out there was to crystallize that point in a nutshell. Let the right thing happen and let the right thing be done by this story and by all the characters and all the players involved. Roman Reigns Cody Rhodes, Paul Heyman, Sami Zayn, Jey Uso, Jimmy, Solo. Let it all play. Let it cook. They know what they're doing here. Don't ruin this by being the typical IWC smart fan base. Or at least don't even try. Because it's not going to work this time. And even if it did, both from a real life and kayfabe standpoint, it would do a lot more harm than good. So don't even fucking try. Let the real storytellers do what they're supposed to do. Yeah, I've needed to unload with this. This has been bubbling for a minute, but now I finally felt like, okay, it's time to fucking unload and tell the whole truth about every single factor of this that says, nah, this whole manufactured begging for Sami to take over, this ain't it. This ain't the right thing to do. This ain't it. Let the right story cook and be told here. This has been bubbling for a minute, and I finally needed to unload. And to be quite frank, I actually feel like I went through this, and it was a lot better. This one was a lot better than the last one because I had a lot more like straight up, look, I got this shit. I got this shit in my dome piece. It bubbled a lot more. And yeah, okay, we're at the point where it's like, okay, 36, 43. We're past an hour. We're closing in on 80 minutes now. This went way too fucking long, honestly. But I still had fun with it. Because all this I have fun with storytelling when it's done right. And I see that, look, here's the only proper story that can be told. And here's how the other story that other people are trying to push into place is going to backfire. And you know what? The fact that I'm confident that WWE is going to do the right thing, I actually enjoyed this a lot more, to be perfectly honest. Because it's good to see good shit come together the right way. And yeah, I get the enthusiasm for Sami Zayn. I appreciate it. I fucking love the stuff that Sami Zayn has been doing. But I also have a very, very good idea. Let me put this in a final context. Getting away from pro wrestling. Yeah, I'm about to mention a fucking kids cartoon from like 15 years ago. Avatar: The Last Airbender. Y'all ever seen that show? If any of y'all used to be kids back in those days and y'all ever watched that, or if you ever ran into it in the later years when freaking Nickelodeon decided to binge on that show because it's like one of their main cash cows over and over. Let me paint a picture. There's already major comparisons, major parallels in everybody's role in this story. Roman Reigns is the evil emperor, the big bad of this story. Just like Fire Lord Ozai. Prince Zuko. Sami Zayn is basically Prince Zuko in this story. Zuko was actually Ozai's son, and he was exiled for speaking out of turn. And Sami is just a family friend who Roman kind of considered a weirdo for the longest time. But the point is, but both of them still have the same fundamental character. A guy who's been connected to the family, but ultimately had to earn his way back in. And when the big bad finally started to accept him again, instead of just holding him at arm's length, he tries to break him into the family's evil ways. But he slowly finds that his true honor doesn't lie in the acceptance of these people who he's thought to gain the favor of all this freaking time. So slowly but surely, he ends up coming around and being like, nah, this ain't my place. I can't be here. And his defection is greeted violently by the Bloodline, the Bloodline stable in the WWE version, and Ozai and Zuko's sister Azula in the Avatar version. But ultimately, he is going to end up joining forces with Kevin Owens, who's basically Uncle Iroh in this situation. It's so funny. I actually didn't even connect this fucking dot. Kevin Owens is Iroh. He's the guy who's been trying to fucking get Sammy/Zuko to realize that, nah, these people ain't what you want to do. The Fire Lord, the Bloodline, the Tribal Chief, this is not where you want to be. These are not the people who represent who you really are. This is not your true honor. This is not your true self over here. Oh, Kevin Owens is fucking Iroh. I didn't even connect this dot until now. Meanwhile, Cody Rhodes, obviously, is the destined hero who's going to topple the Fire Lord. He's going to topple the big bad. He's going to topple the evil emperor. He's the chosen one. He's the destined one. He's the one who's ready for the moment like no one else. Just like Avatar Aang was. The last airbender. And even more funny, Cody lost his father. Aang lost his entire people. And their honor is very important. The honor of those gone by is very important to this hero. That's another fucking factor in this whole... It's an intricate story. You basically... I've just freaking painted the picture. The WWE is basically retelling Avatar: The Last Airbender in wrestling format with this Bloodline story. Don't fucking force Zuko to be the one to kill Ozai. Because that's not the way this shit works. I'm having fun with this shit. But I've gone on for almost an hour and a half. So at this point, this is the part where I freaking cut off, y'all. This is the part where I cut off. Have fun. Anybody want to actually comment? Let me know what you think. Stay gold. Your boy's out. I'm going to do some shit. I'm going to have some fun. I'm going to do some recreation. I'm going to relax. And then I'm going to go back to work. And then I'm going to wait until something else strikes my fancy, something else comes across my mind, and I get to blast off again with y'all. But for now, I'm done. I just had a fucking blast. Let's fucking go. Let's go, Cody!